Good evening. This is Victoria from Women's Issues, Women's Voices, and you are listening to 89.5 KOPN Columbia. It's not just radio, it's community radio. And this evening, I am excited to have someone in the studio, in my Zoom studio with me, as this is being pre-recorded because KOPN is, if you don't know yet, it's on the move. We are moving from our longtime digs on Broadway to a little further, just a little bit north of downtown. Um, so you are getting this pre-recorded, and so who I have in my Zoom studio is a new friend of mine. Lisa and I connected around the world of dance. So Lisa, would you like to introduce yourselves to the folks out there listening?
Of course. Hello, my name is Lisa Gegor, and I have been in the Columbia community for over about 25 years, I guess, 1998, maybe a little bit more. And I've been teaching dance specifically at Columbia Performing Arts Center since 1998. And I've had my fingers in dance kind of all over, a little bit here and there, and lots over here and lots over there, but mostly as I like to tease people, torturing other people's children and getting paid for it. So
So
that's
you,
that's my motto.
wow, so you've been teaching dance for almost 25 years. Not quite. We're not quite there.
Well, in Columbia,
In Colombia. Yeah.
yes, but I've been teaching dance for about, well, to date myself, I started when I was in my teens as an assistant,
Mhm.
with my first dance teacher, Lillian DeNoyer in Arnold, Missouri, and then her daughter, Sharon McGuire. And so I've been teaching in the studio for a very long time.
Mhm. Well, and so I just listeners, so our our connection was dance and movement, and then I started thinking about, I mean, if you grew up in small town Missouri, how much dance and dance education was a part of well, it was a part of my life, and it was a part of most of the little girls I knew, that somehow we got connected with tap, ballet, and in a little studio. Like for me, it was in Mexico, Missouri, right? And just like wondering about the importance of that, how that has affected young women and girls, in whatever way it's affected, how it's been valuable, how it's maybe at times not been valuable. I know I've had some stories about some things that my dance teacher said that weren't
Mhm,
helpful, and
mhm.
how dance has changed in those 50 years since I went back, since I was in that little room with that little bar.
No, right?
So that's actually what the topic of tonight's show is so what is the value of dance education for girls and women? I mean, I think that it's so important, right, to
Yeah,
help all people, but especially women, be able to be in their bodies. But so
yeah.
that's the topic we're going to kind of wander around and touch on. But so you're a dance teacher, but you're also part of the Missouri Dance Organization. Can you tell folks a little bit about MDO?
Sure, sure. I'm the current president of the Missouri Dance Organization, and the Missouri Dance Organization is a state affiliate of the National Dance Education Organization. So either MDO or NDEO, but we go by MDO. And their mission is to connect and build the diverse communities of dance in Missouri. And we do that by providing vital networking resources and education. So, and that's what we do throughout the state in order to be able to really connect these wonderful communities. They're all kind of siloed throughout Missouri,
Mhm.
and they're all just kind of swimming,
Mhm.
especially after these 2 years. They're all trying to
Mhm.
swim and trying to survive, and we kind of see MDO as a web, and we're
Mhm.
trying to be able to help connect all these incredible artists
Mhm.
and just be able to help support what they're doing and help them to find more audience, and with more audience help them to find more funding, and just being able to share what they have learned, because dance
Mhm.
has really blossomed, as since we were those little ones at the bar,
Mhm.
told, and it was very strict in our upbringing, and now it's really blossomed into something beautiful, and
Mhm.
it's just
Mhm.
great to be able to support them. Every time I interview a new member or someone new across the state, I am so humbled by what they're
Mhm.
doing. I am like, wow, that is an incredible story. That is so amazing how you use dance in your everyday life to enhance not only your inner spirit and your soul, but you're enhancing the community around you. And that's really beautiful, because arts are so healing, that it's just exciting and humbling to be able to connect. And that's what MDO tries to do. And that's our mission.
Well, and so I just this word dance, and you and I in our social conversations, like told you how much I struggle with even calling myself a dancer, which
Mhm.
people who know me have told me, oh, that's just silly, right?
Right, right.
You know, and one of the reasons is that that I have found that people have very uh, sometimes very rigid
Mm,
ideas when they hear the word dance, that they think it means something very specific. And what I've heard is that performative is one,
mhm,
that it has to be
mhm.
a performance. Another is it's that it has to be learned steps, someone else's choreography, or you're dancing with a partner and it's got a specific structure. Um,
Right.
and I will say that that's, I mean, I one of the reasons that I resisted the idea of dance is because in my hometown, dance was what people did after they had too much to drink. But to me, that wasn't dancing at all.
Right?
People, right? And and I've come to, I mean, I am a mover. I'm a mover,
Mhm.
and I've come to embrace that term of dance in part, like you've been part of that process. And
Yeah.
so talk about what Missouri Dance Organization means by that word dance, because I know that there are folks in it who are very talented performers, and
Yeah.
there are folks in there who are choreographers and who are teaching, right? Couples dancing. And then there's other pieces of it. So, what is
Yeah.
dance?
So as you pointed out, dance is a wide, very wide, beautiful collection of expression using your body. And it has components like the European based theatrical dance, your ballet, which, or then even the jazz and tap, which has been Americanized because the history is so vast with that, with the African American culture and Cuban culture and things like that. And so, what is great is that we have all of these collective, dance movement. You have Indian dance, you have Chinese dance, you have salsa, and it's not the salsa that you learned in the ballroom. That's one thing, but there's salsa that is more expressive, that is more of a folk. I don't want to say folk
Cultural,
dance. I'm missing
right? Yep,
missing the
cultural.
right word, but
Hmm.
and then cumbia from Colombia, and so you have this wonderful world of what is now American culture, you know, fused all together, and it's really exciting. So I don't believe that dance can be put into a small little little component. I believe that, you express what's in your heart, whether you're 2 years old, dancing around or stomping your feet, or, you're expressing yourself as I get out of my chair going, oh my gosh, my
Mhm.
back is hurting. So there's so much.
Yeah.
So it is beautiful, but I do agree that, and it is still, and with my students that I have, um, they do have this pinpointed vision of what dancer is. Oh, I'm a dancer. And they immediately think like what we're talking about, like, oh, someone who's performing, someone on Broadway, someone on who has ballet and tap dance, oh, I can't be a dancer. And then they don't pursue the fact that there are careers in dance that utilize dance beautifully. And I even have a whole list of those
Yes.
careers for us,
Yes.
and so it is interesting is that while the dance world is growing, I think as a community, we still put the word dance specifically as certain something, or people
Mhm.
go, oh, I'm not a dancer.
Right.
So that means I can't move. I'm like, well, you move all the time.
Mhm.
You're just not, if you have a
Yeah.
set routine in the morning to get your coffee, you've choreographed that routine and you're a dancer.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's for me is that, with my training in the Laban movement analysis, it's that question of how do you want to move and what are you expressing? And to me, that's when I was able to start uh, uh, claiming that word dance and dancer is
Mhm.
simply, am I conscious about what I'm expressing through movement?
Mhm.
And to me, then that opens it up to, right, to that there is the way that we are moving from the moment the moment we're conceived until, right,
Yes,
until
exactly. And we're expressing
yeah,
something all the time. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
right, and that's hmm
yeah, I really value that component of creativity. Growing up, I guess I was always such a rule follower,
hmm
that do this, okay, do that, okay, now do whatever you want. No, I can't. I can't do whatever I want because
oh,
someone hasn't told me what to do,
right,
and so that there has to be a nurturing quality to both at the
hmm
same time of a
yeah,
development, because you get me to improvise and I will stand there and I'm like, no, I am not going to improvise, unless I'm
hmm
in a studio by myself and I'm choreographing, and then I'll
mm,
improvise and I feel comfortable because that's my language. But it's like it's very funny how you know
hmm
your mind is shaped so early, so
well,
I do value that. And I'm just not very good at it, but give me a
oh,
routine and man, jazz
mm.
hands all the way, I've got it.
And then you improv, right? And then, I mean, that's the thing that I tell, the participants in my movement classes,
Mhm.
my movement workshops is that some people want no structure. They
Mhm.
want it to be, I had a dear friend who, I mean, she didn't want to think about counting. She didn't open her eyes. She didn't care what anyone else was doing. It was all just her flow, 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 right?
Yeah.
And that's so, and the interesting thing about was though, is as I was doing my training, I started watching and I realized she did have an internal structure that she
Mhm.
always moved around.
Yeah.
She had a collection. And I remember thinking, oh, well, that's a form of dance that often, like, that's when people are saying, oh, I can't dance. They're
Mhm.
saying, I can't just let myself go, in front of people to rhythm and do whatever.
Right.
Um, but then there's that other end where I remember there was a research article that I read many, many years ago, and people will post it every once in a while about how important dance is to keep your mind healthy. to keep your
Mm-hmm.
brain healthy, not your mind, your brain. But if you read that article, what they're actually talking about is if you learn a new choreography every 2 to 3 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
that's what keeps your brain fresh. So someone who just wants to free form dance, even if they're dancing every day, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily keeping their brain fresh,
True. True.
right? But they may
Right.
still be enjoying it. And so this is this other pieces. Well, dance is partially about what's your intention,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
True.
yeah.
True.
So I'm going to dovetail that really nicely into, well, what was the intention? Like, you and I are probably somewhere in the same age range. What was the intention, do you think, for those little dance studios in the late 60s, early 70s, 80s? Like, what was the intention of those teachers? Because almost, I mean, my experience was 100% of the teachers were women,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to say 90 to 95% of those students were girls, were females. What do you
Mm-hmm.
think that, I mean, do you think there was a, I mean, was it simply just to teach, right, tap and ballet, or like, was there something else there that
Hmm.
inspired? I mean, is that the history? I mean, has dance always been taught in that way in this country?
You know what? I'm not sure. I'm not sure specifically, so don't quote me on my
Okay,
on my
okay,
dates.
yeah, fine.
I'm not the
I'm sort of
historian.
throwing you a new question that just popped in my head. So.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Well, because it's interesting because dance was such a part of our culture for such a long
Mhm.
time, and it had great importance. We can even go back to the French playwright Moliere. God forbid if a gentleman can't dance,
Mhm.
that's like social suicide. And now we're here in the 20th century where no one knows how to dance.
Mhm.
So as the dance socially became less important, then the need for teaching people to dance rose. And
Mhm.
so, there is that kind of melding into that. And that's from my layman's perspective. And that's when the dance studios really, really blossomed, because otherwise you would have known some sort of dance. And I think the intent I don't really know my dance teacher's intent, but she just loved it. I mean, you
Mm.
could tell my dance teachers absolutely loved it and was sharing something, and it made her life better, and she wanted her students to be have that joy. And so I think, along with that joy, there's also that discipline. Do you really want something? Are you going to work hard for something? Because dance, it's not instant. It's a culmination of years and years of, whether it's a structured ballet class or whether it's improvisational. There's so many facets and secrets to this art of dance that whatever genre you choose, it takes time to develop. And
Yes.
if you're going to craft it, you're going to craft it properly, so that the intent can be pure. And sometimes
Mhm.
it kind of gets muddled and lost, especially as dancers grow. They're like, oh my gosh, how high can I get my leg? And then they
Mhm.
kind of forget the purity of the
The
movement.
foundation.
It's too wide. Yeah, 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 exactly. And that happens to us all, and in different ways, and in different in different vocabulary within each genre. So I think there was a need to be able to share this craft, and it was not being met. And so that's why studios have developed, because I really, and maybe someone else out there will be able to help
Mm.
educate me as to when the studios actually started to come about. Was it the 30s, 40s?
I
That
don't know.
yeah. So be
Mhm.
interesting, but
Well, because I mean, when I think back, I mean, I don't know where else I would have been exposed to dance as an art form,
Hmm.
um, if it hadn't been, I mean, because I even think about, then that filters into school musicals, and
Right.
and even if you had no intention, and that's the thing is, like, I my assumption, I loved dance of all forms, although I kind of rebelled. I didn't like the more structured, which is why it's so great that we're friends, because
Yes, exactly. I love
and,
it.
and this is the thing, is that what I tell people is improvisation takes practice,
Yeah.
right? You can't just, people who are spontaneous practice spontaneity. Being able
Yes.
to
Yeah.
do it safely, and and consciously. I mean, it takes practice as well. But I think about, what you said about the discipline of a joyous experience. Like, I actually am going to write this down. I mean, I think that is my definition then of dance. Is
Hmm.
it's this spiritual, physical, mental discipline, right? Of this joyous, right?
Yeah.
Joyous
Yeah.
experience. Yeah.
I
Um,
like that.
and I think about how uh, that I don't know that that was ever explained to me in any
Hmm.
way, because I feel like I missed the pieces of, like, hey, here's, if you practice this,
Hmm.
you'll change slowly. And I see that with a lot of my clients. Is there
Hmm.
something that happened in our culture where we actually thought, oh, we're just supposed to know how to do things and then show up to a recital,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And just what
Right.
we're supposed
Right.
to know, and that showing up to class isn't enough,
Hmm.
right? And that same thing with, with my clients. Showing up to a session with me once a week or once every 2 weeks, not going to create change.
Hmm.
That there's it's that same thing. It's that practice. So that's where, to me,
Yeah.
dance and, the
Right.
somatic movement therapy and counseling all come together. Right?
Yeah.
What is it that you're wanting to create? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Definitely. It's
Oh,
beautiful.
yeah. So I think that's a really great place for us to close this half. And then when we come back, talk a little bit about, so what is your perception that the value has been for girls, for women of our age, for the women that are being created now. Um,
Yeah.
what does dance education? How does it support them? Right? How has it changed over the years to be more supportive? Because I definitely see that. Definitely see
Yeah.
that.
Definitely.
So, yeah. So,
Great.
listeners, join us at the second half. Enjoy the music, maybe get up and move around a little bit.
Do a little dance.
Yes.